My first guest on the program is from a company that first started out as a simple information website back in 1998. But in the last 12 months has transacted over $13 billion in the currency markets for its clients. Michael Judge from Us Forex joins me here in the studio. Michael, welcome.
Good evening, Andrew.
Tell us a little bit about Us Forex and the history behind the company and where it all began.
Yeah, it's been an amazing journey for the company. Initially founded on Sydney's northern beaches in the year of 1998. As you mentioned there in your introduction, obviously initially an information-only service. Our founding employee, Matt Gilmore, having spent over a decade in currency markets, acknowledged and identified that there was a significant segment of the market which wasn't being catered for necessarily by providers at the time. So since initially transacting on behalf of clients in 2003, we've obviously undergone significant change and attracted investment along the way. I suppose a journey which did culminate in the company becoming floated on the Australian Stock Exchange on the 13th of October in 2013.
In fact, there was a few mentions on the program today, I think on Market Day, about OzForex. So tell us specifically, what does Us Forex do?
I suppose our key mantra as a business, if you like, is to make global simple. We acknowledge that our key segments across the board can be quite daunting, if you like, facing an international payment. And our key role in all of this is to simplify that process. We'd like to position ourselves as a superior global payment alternative or a global payment solution for our clients.
So how do you go about achieving those key objectives for all of your clients?
I suppose at the heart of that, we'd still like to view ourselves as a grown-up startup, if you like, still very much in a tech business and an information technology organisation. But I suppose those three pillars would be firstly simplicity, price, and obviously speed of transaction.
So typically, who's a main customer for Us Forex?
The business has identified two key segments, both a private client as well as obviously a business or a small business enterprise, if you like. Within that private client space, key segments have been identified as global families as well as global citizens.
Interesting. Yeah.
Obviously, here in Australia, we have identified within those segments, obviously we are a very interconnected as well as a very globalised and multicultural society. So
let's talk about now, the bottom line is these days, if I go to a traditional bank, I guess I'm getting the feeling that I'm probably not going to get the best currency deal if I wander into a bank these days, which I assume most mums and dads watching the show would normally do. What are the differences between wandering to the bank and, say, jumping online and accessing a service such as Us Forex?
I think the key thing to note here is that a bank traditionally provides a plethora of financial services. Obviously, it does provide retail banking services, depository and lending services as well. However, Us Forex is simply an international money transfer remitter. We are a deliverable foreign exchange service, and we provide a simple solution for our clients simply to make a payment from A to B. We also identify that in order for clients to come to us in the first place, that our price is going to need to be competitive, and obviously that is an initial talking point with a lot of the customers that we do provide a service.
So let's get down to more the nitty-gritty when you say competitive. Let's use an example of just, let's say, $20,000. If I take $20,000, I want to transact it, I've got to send it overseas for a wedding, or I'm buying something overseas. If I wander into a bank traditionally, what would I be charged as a percentage on my $20,000 transaction versus, say, jumping online and using a service such as yours?
I think a lot of our cost analysis has shown that, I suppose, if you were to put Us Forex versus a bank, for example, the average cost saving is going to be looking at around 4%. So the key objective of all customers should be to get to as close as that market or that wholesale rate as possible. And through our service, we've found that a saving of around 4% on a turnover of around that 25,000 Australian dollar mark. So if obviously you do the maths on that, you're looking at a saving of around $1,000 per $25,000 parcel.
And I can cut down down my transaction costs if I have more frequency of those costs too, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are certainly in the business of placing value on overall turnover that clients have. A lot of our business clients particularly do have a reoccurring or regular payment cycle, and we do reward obviously improved rates through higher volumes.
So if I was looking to use OzForex, how do I go about it, and how long does it take me from the time I jump on the website to the time I can get the transaction done and get it where it needs to be?
Initially, you'd need to point towards our website. There is a register free tab there on our homepage. From that point, a dedicated resource would call you to follow up and ask you a couple of questions. But overall, just depending on what our regulatory requirements or commitments are at that point, I suppose a turnaround would be around 1 to 2 business days, potentially substantially quicker also.
And with the clients that are making the transactions with you, I've got to ask you, what's the number one transaction that OzForex makes, say, from, say, Aussie dollars into something else? What's the most popular transaction you do?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the last 5 years it's been an interesting dynamic. Obviously, we've seen a very high dollar up until recently, and traditionally our flows do focus on when the Aussie's obviously strong. There has been a net outpour into traditional flows like the euro, like the sterling and the US dollar, and those flows are particularly relevant in the retail space, obviously with a lot of New Zealand clients, a lot of obviously European based and also British clients here. So those traditional flows have been at the core of a lot of our growth over the past 5 or so years.
Well, by the sounds of it, we can save a few dollars by jumping online rather than using the old traditional means. We might actually get you back on the program in a few weeks' time, because I know you not only just do the transactions in physical cash, but you can also help travellers and people heading overseas to save a few dollars as well. So thanks so much for joining us, Michael. That was Michael Judge from OzForex.